They say monsters don't dream. But on the coldest night of winter, the Vampire King made a wish. Not for power, not for blood, but for one thing he's been denied for 1,000 years. A human Christmas. And when a bold witch risked forbidden magic to grant him that wish, she didn't just steal a moment from the gods. She stole time itself. Because when the sun rises, the king dies. Unless she chooses to bind her soul to his forever. This is the story of a single night that could save him, destroy her, or change the fate of their entire world. Before we dive in, tell me, where are you watching from right now? I love seeing where everyone's tuning in from. Snow fell like quiet feathers over the kingdom of Blackwell, settling on rooftops, forests, and the old stones of the castle that overlooked everything. Inside those towering walls, in a throne room lit only by blue fire, King Damien Blackwell stood alone before a window. His breath did not fog the glass. He had not breathed in centuries, but he watched the world outside with the stillness of a statue. Down in the human village, warm lights glowed. Children laughed, chasing each other with bells in their hands. Couples walked arm in arm. Every door had a wreath. Every window shined. Christmas. Damien watched it the way a starving man might watch a feast he had no right to touch. He had led armies, destroyed kingdoms, and built an empire feared by all. Yet each winter night, he always returned to this window, standing in silence, listening to the faint echoes of human joy drifting up through the snow. His guard, Victor Hale, approached from behind. Tall, sharp-eyed, and fiercely loyal, Victor never let his king out of sight for long. "My king," Victor said, bowing. "It is late. The patrol waits for your command." Damien didn't turn. "Tell them to continue without me." Victor hesitated. "Are you well? You've stood here for hours." Damien's voice was calm, masking an ache far too old for words. "I am observing." "What is there to observe, sire?" Victor asked softly. "It is only the humans celebrating their winter rituals." Damien almost smiled, but it was hollow. "Exactly." Victor followed his king's gaze and frowned. "Forgive my boldness, but you look at them as though you wish to join." Damien didn't answer. His fingers gently brushed the frost on the glass. After a long pause, he whispered, barely audible, "I wonder what it feels like." Victor blinked. What feels like, my king?" Damien's jaw tightened. He hated saying it aloud, hated admitting it even to himself. "Warmth," he murmured. "A hearth. Hot food. Laughter. The softness of snow melting on the skin instead of vanishing on contact." His voice faded. "A human Christmas." Victor stared at him, stunned. "That is not possible, my king. You know the laws of nature and the laws of magic. Immortals do not become mortal." Damien looked away from the window at last. His expression hardened again into the mask he always wore. "Yes, I know." Victor lowered his head in respect, but worry shadowed his eyes. "If I may offer counsel, this longing you feel, it is dangerous. Wanting what you cannot have leads to weakness. And weakness." "I am not weak," Damien said sharply. Victor bowed instantly. "Of course not, sire." Damien closed his eyes for a brief moment. "Leave me." Victor stepped back and vanished into the darkness. Damien opened his eyes again, staring down at the village. Children made snow angels. A family placed candles in their windows. Someone began playing a flute. A world he could only watch. A world he could never touch. Except the faint whisper of magic stirred somewhere in the forest. Ancient, forbidden, powerful. It brushed against Damien's senses like a cold hand sliding across the back of his neck. Someone had arrived. Someone who carried the scent of destiny. Far beneath the castle, at the edge of the snowy woods, a woman stepped into the village for the first time. Her name was Lydia Moore, and she had come for him. Lydia pulled her cloak tighter as she walked through the small village. Snowflakes clung to her eyelashes like delicate crystals. The scent of baked bread and pine filled the air. Lanterns glowed warmly from windows, giving the whole village a dreamlike charm. She paused in front of a cottage with a sign that read, "Room for Travelers." "Perfect," she whispered, brushing snow from her boots. Inside, the air was warm and welcoming. A fire crackled in the hearth. A round, cheerful woman behind the desk smiled at her. "Evening, dear. Looking for a room?" the woman asked. "Yes, just for the winter nights," Lydia replied. "You came at a beautiful time. The holiday festival starts tomorrow." Lydia forced a smile. "I heard. That's why I came." The woman handed her a key. "Room upstairs. Second door on the left." "Thank you." Lydia nodded and climbed the stairs. But as she reached her room, her expression shifted from polite warmth to something far more serious. She set down her bag, closed the door, and locked it. Then she knelt on the floor, spreading out several pages of old parchment covered in runes and red ink. A deep pulse of magic seemed to hum from them. She whispered, "So the prophecy was right. The king longs for the touch of mortality." She unfolded one page, the most dangerous one. It was burnt at the edges, its symbols trembling faintly with forbidden power. The spell that could turn an immortal into a human for one day. She had been warned it should never be used. The one who grants this gift must carry the cost. Lydia swallowed hard and brushed her fingers over the final line written in old witch script. "At dawn, the transformed immortal dies, unless the caster binds their soul to him." She took a sharp breath. That part she had not told anyone. She had not come to save the vampire king. She had come because the prophecy told her that granting him this one wish would change the fate of both their worlds. Good or bad, no prophecy said. Just that her life would never be the same. A soft knock at her window made her freeze. Slowly, Lydia stood. A shadow moved outside, silent, dark, impossibly fast. She took one step forward, then another. Her heart thudded once, hard. She unlatched the window. A cold wind rushed in, blowing out her candle. When she reopened her eyes, Damien Blackwell stood before her. Not in her room. He was too powerful to enter uninvited, but close enough to see her through the frosted glass. His presence filled the night like a storm wrapped in a man's shape. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in black armor dusted lightly with snow. His eyes glowed faintly crimson, but within them flickered something darker, something human. He stared at her as if he had always known she would come. "Witch," he said, his voice deep and cold. "Why are you here?" Lydia steadied her breath. "I could ask you the same, my king. You've been watching me since I stepped foot into this village." His expression did not change. "You carry old magic, dangerous magic. Few mortals dare to touch it." "I'm not afraid of danger," she replied. "Perhaps you should be." Damien rested one hand against the window frame. The frost beneath his fingers formed sharp patterns. "Tell me why you came." Lydia met his eyes. "I came because you wished for something impossible." His gaze narrowed. "Impossible things are the only ones worth wanting." "Then you do want it," Lydia whispered. "A human Christmas." The words hung in the air like a fragile truth. For the first time, Damien looked away, as though the admission burned him more than sunlight ever could. "That is not your concern," he said quietly. "But it is," Lydia replied gently. "Because I can give it to you." His eyes snapped back to hers, fierce and searching. "What do you know of such magic?" "Enough," she said. "Enough to grant you a day as a human." Silence fell. Outside, snow drifted down like soft ash. Inside, Lydia felt her pulse pounding in her throat. Damien studied her for a long moment. "If you lie to me, witch, I will tear this entire village apart until nothing remains." Lydia didn't flinch. "I don't lie." His eyes darkened. "Then show me." "Not yet," she said softly. "First, I need something from you." Damien's voice dropped dangerously low. "What?" "Permission," Lydia said. "And trust." The Vampire King gave a low, humorless laugh. I do not trust witches. And I do not give permission for magic I cannot control. Then we are at a standstill, she said simply. He stared at her, the cold night swirling around him. Somewhere behind him, Victor moved in the shadows, waiting for orders. Damien leaned forward slightly, his breath chilling the air. Why do you want to help me? Lydia hesitated, but only for a moment. Because, she whispered, you are not the monster you pretend to be. Damien's eyes flashed with something between anger and pain. You know nothing of me. I know you spend every winter night looking toward the village, she said. I know you watch the lights, the families, the joy. I know you think no one sees you, but I do. He went still, completely still. You should go back to bed, he said at last, before curiosity kills you. Lydia stepped closer to the window. Curiosity doesn't kill me, she said, but loneliness might be killing you. Damien's jaw clenched. For a second, the mask he wore cracked, revealing a glimpse of longing so deep it almost startled her. Almost. Then the mask returned. He straightened. If you attempt to interfere with my kingdom, I will end you. I didn't come to interfere, Lydia said softly. I came to change something. Change. Damien echoed. Yes. One day. One night. One Christmas. She looked directly into his glowing eyes. Let me give you what you've never had. The wind howled between them. Victor's voice called out faintly from behind the trees. My king? Is everything all right? Damien didn't look away from Lydia. The tension between them hung like a blade's edge. Finally, Damien whispered, We will speak again. And with a swift, silent movement, he vanished into the darkness. Lydia closed the window slowly, her breath shaking as she exhaled. She went back to the table, staring at the forbidden spell. Her fingers trembled as she touched the final line again. At dawn the transformed immortal dies. Unless she chose to bind her soul with his. Lydia closed her eyes. Damien Blackwell, she whispered, you have no idea what you're asking for. Outside, in the forest, Damien walked with silent steps, Victor following beside him. My king, Victor said. The witch, did she threaten you? No, Damien murmured. Then what did she want? Damien didn't answer for a moment. Then he said quietly, She offered me Christmas. Victor froze. Sire, surely you cannot be considering. Damien looked toward the glowing village again. The bells rang. Children laughed. Snowflakes landed on the ground and melted. Victor, Damien whispered, find out everything you can about Lydia Moore. Victor's eyes darkened. And if she is dangerous? Damien stared into the falling snow. Then she will not live long enough to harm me. But deep in his voice, beneath the threat, lay something else. Something complicated. Something dangerous. Something human. And neither of them noticed the northern lights beginning to stir above the forest, glimmering as if welcoming the fate drawing closer with every snowfall. The moon climbed high over the snow-covered forest, lighting the ground with a silver glow. Tree branches hung heavy with frost, creaking softly in the cold wind. Lydia walked alone through the woods, guided by the faint pull of magic she felt every time Damien was near. Her boots crunched through the snow, and her breath rose in soft clouds. She pulled her cloak closer but kept walking. She had expected Damien to come to her again. Not openly. Not in daylight. But in the shadows, where he was strongest. And she was right. He appeared in the trees ahead of her like smoke turning into shape, tall, dark, silent. His black cloak fluttered slightly even though the air was still. His eyes glowed like dim embers. Witch, he said, voice deep and cold, you walk in my forest without fear. Lydia didn't stop. If you wanted to kill me, you already would have. Damien stepped closer. Do not test my patience. She finally halted, snow gently falling around her. I'm not testing it. I'm trusting it. He studied her for a long moment. his expression unreadable. "You said you could give me a human Christmas. I've come for answers." Lydia nodded once, then asked. Damien moved until he stood only a few feet away, his shadow touching hers. "What exactly does your magic do?" "It trades your immortality temporarily," Lydia said. "It gives you one day, sunrise to sunrise, in a mortal body. Human senses, human emotions, human needs." Damien's jaw tightened. "And at the end?" Lydia hesitated. He caught it instantly. "Speak. Now." "Your body returns to immortality," she said, "unless your human form dies before sunrise." Damien frowned. "Humans die easily." "Yes," Lydia whispered. "They do." Damien paced slowly, snow crunching under his boots. "Tell me the price." Lydia felt her throat tighten. It must be cast by someone willing to share the cost. If something goes wrong, if your human heart fails, if the magic weakens before sunrise, the one who cast the spell will feel it too. "Will feel it," Damien repeated. "Or die from it." Lydia looked away for a moment. "Both are possible." Silence fell between them. A heavy, freezing silence. Damien stepped closer, eyes narrowing. "Why would you risk yourself for something so trivial? A holiday, a human ritual you do not even celebrate with me." Lydia didn't back away. "Because this matters to you." His expression flickered, but only for a heartbeat. "And because," she added softly, "this magic was meant to find you." Damien's voice dropped. "You speak of prophecies, fate. I do not believe in either." "Believe or not," Lydia said, "they already believe in you." Damien watched her closely, his eyes cold but curious. "And what do you gain from giving me this gift?" Lydia forced herself to answer plainly. "I gain nothing." He didn't believe her. "You are lying." "No," she said quietly. "I'm terrified." Damien tilted his head slightly. "Of me." "Of what this magic could do," Lydia said. "Of what it means for both of us." Damien stepped closer again. His hand rose, stopping inches from her cheek, close enough for her to feel the cold of his skin, but not touching. "You are trembling," he observed. "I'm cold," she said quickly. "You lie again," Damien whispered. "You tremble because you feel fear." Lydia finally met his eyes. Only a fool feels no fear around a king who has lived 1,000 years. The faintest shadow of a smile ghosted across his lips. "Good. Fear keeps mortals alive." Lydia swallowed. "Then you know the risk. You know the cost. Yet you still came." Damien's face hardened again. "I have not agreed to anything." "Then what do you want?" Damien leaned slightly forward. "I want to see if your courage is real, or if you merely enjoy dancing with death." Lydia breathed out slowly. "You want proof?" "Yes," Damien said. "I want you to show me." Lydia nodded. "Then meet me tomorrow. Midnight. In the clearing where the northern lights touch the snow." Damien stepped back, his cloak swirling around him like living shadow. "If this is a trap," he warned, "I will destroy the village first. Then you." "It's not a trap," Lydia said softly. "Just a chance." Damien turned to leave but paused. Without looking back, he asked, "Why me?" Lydia's heart pounded. "Because you're the only immortal who ever wished to be human again." Damien stood very still. For the first time, the cold around him seemed less sharp, as if the thought warmed him in a way he hated to admit. Finally, he said, "Midnight." And then he vanished, leaving only drifting snow behind. Lydia let herself fall to a knee, exhaling shakily. She had just promised the Vampire King a miracle, and she had no idea if she could survive giving it. Midnight arrived with a sky full of northern lights. Waves of green and purple shimmered like living silk across the heavens. The clearing glowed faintly under their shifting colors. Pine trees circled the space, covered in frost that sparkled like tiny crystals. Lydia stood in the center of the clearing, her cloak laid on the ground beside a small circle of glowing runes. She held a book of old magic open in her hands. Her fingers trembled, not from the cold, but from the power thrumming beneath the pages. She whispered, "I hope I'm ready." A cold wind sliced through the trees. Damien stepped into the clearing. He looked different tonight, not softer, but searching. His eyes scanned the runes, the sky, the witch. His breath did not fog. His boots left no print in the snow. He was a creature untouched by the world, and tonight he planned to walk into the heart of it. "Lydia," he said, his voice quieter than before, "you chose this place. It's where the veil between worlds grows thin," she explained. "Magic listens more clearly here." Damien nodded once. "And you are prepared?" "As prepared as I can be." He walked slowly to the center, stopping across from her. "Then begin." Lydia opened the book completely. A deep hum rose from the ground, vibrating through her boots. Damien's eyes narrowed. "I feel the spell already." "You're sensitive to magic," Lydia said. "That'll help." "It could also kill me faster," Damien murmured. Lydia hesitated. "If you want to stop." "No," Damien said firmly. "Do it." She took a steady breath. "Step into the circle." Damien obeyed, stepping inside the ring of runes. Instantly, the symbols flashed brighter, like lightning trapped in the snow. The lights above rippled faster, almost as if reacting to his presence. Lydia walked toward him, raising her hands. "Once I start this, there's no turning back." "I am aware." "Damien," she hesitated. "When your heart starts beating again, it's going to hurt." "I have endured far worse pain." "But not human pain," Lydia said softly. "It's different." Damien's expression tightened. But he said nothing. Lydia began chanting the spell. Her voice rose through the clearing, ancient and rhythmic. The air thickened, glowing faintly. Damien felt the magic slide around him like invisible hands pressing into his skin, his bones, his very essence. His jaw clenched. "This is strong magic." "Hold still," Lydia said. She pressed both palms to his chest, the first touch he had felt from a mortal in centuries. He froze. Her hands were warm. So warm. His skin felt the heat even though he had none of his own. Lydia continued chanting, her voice strengthening as energy poured from her into him. Snow around the circle melted into steam. Light flowed from the sky into the runes. The ground trembled. Then Damien gasped. A real gasp. A human gasp. He staggered back, clutching his chest. What is happening?" Lydia reached for him. "Your heart. It's waking up." Damien fell to one knee, eyes wide, expression twisted with a shock he couldn't hide. He whispered, voice shaking. "It beats." Lydia knelt beside him. "Yes. That means the change is working." He touched his chest again, stunned. "I haven't felt a heartbeat in over 1,000 years." "It'll take a moment for you to adjust," she said gently. But then the pain hit him full force. Damien gritted his teeth, choking back a cry. "It burns." "That's your blood coming back," Lydia whispered urgently. "Stay with me." Damien's breath hitched, breath, real breath, and he stared at the air fogging in front of him. "I can see it. My breath." "You're human now," Lydia said softly. He looked at his trembling hands, his pale skin turning warm with circulating blood. He curled his fingers slowly, as if amazed by the sensation. "I feel cold," he said. "That's normal," Lydia said. He pressed a hand to his chest again. "And heat. Both at once. Is that normal?" "For humans," she said. "Yes." Damien looked up at her, eyes swirling with awe, pain, and something deeper. "Lydia!" "Don't talk," she whispered. "Just breathe." Damien let out a shaky breath. "It hurts, but it also feels Lydia waited. He searched for the word. Alive. The spell completed in a flash of white light. Damien collapsed into the snow, breathing heavily. Lydia caught him before he hit the ground completely. For the first time, his body felt heavy, alive, warm, fragile. He looked at his hands again, still stunned by the sensation. The snow, it melts. Yes, Lydia said. It melts on human skin. Damien stared at her, voice rough. You've done it. Yes, she whispered. But remember, this lasts only until sunrise. He nodded slowly, but his eyes were full of wonder, shock, and curiosity. Then let the night begin. And somewhere in the shadows, hidden behind the trees, Damien's guards watched with silent fury, because their king, for the first time in centuries, was breakable. And entirely human. Damien woke to the soft crackle of a fire. Warmth wrapped around him in a way he had not felt in centuries. When he opened his eyes, the first thing he saw was the wooden ceiling of the small village cottage. Snow fell peacefully outside the window. The light inside was golden and gentle. And for the first time in more than 1,000 years, Damien felt rested. He blinked in confusion, lifting a hand to his chest. His heart beat strongly beneath his palm. His body felt heavy, soft, beautifully flawed. Human. He sat up too fast. Easy, Lydia said from across the room. She stood near the fireplace, stirring a pot of something warm and fragrant. Her cloak had been hung on a hook. Her hair was pulled back loosely, a few strands falling around her face. She looked different in this light, softer, calmer, though still with that spark in her eyes that told him she was ready for anything. Damien swallowed. I slept. Yes, Lydia said with a small smile. Humans do that. Not me, Damien murmured. Not for so long. He pressed his hand to his chest again, as if confirming he was still alive. Lydia watched him silently, her expression hard to read. Damien finally stood, a little unsteady on his feet. My balance is strange. You're not used to having weight, Lydia said. Blood. Muscles that need rest. He frowned. Being human is inefficient. Probably, she said. But it's real. He walked toward the window, placing a hand against the cold glass. For the first time ever, it felt cold. Not just noticed, felt. He inhaled, and the air stung his lungs a little. It burns, he whispered. The cold? Lydia asked. Yes. That's normal. Damien let his hand slide down the window, watching the snow melt beneath his touch. I used to watch humans do this, he said softly. I could never understand why they enjoyed it. And now? She asked. Damien turned, his eyes warm with something new, something fragile. Now I understand. The cold hurts, but the warmth after feels earned. Lydia watched him carefully. She saw something changing inside him. Not just his body, but something deeper, something ancient waking for the first time. He looked around the cottage. It was small, with cozy furniture, handmade quilts, a table with candles waiting to be lit. A wreath hung on the door. Damien touched the back of a chair gently. This is simple, he whispered. But beautiful. Lydia nodded. Humans find comfort in small things. Damien walked toward the pot she was stirring. What is that smell? Breakfast. He frowned. I do not eat. You do now. She handed him a wooden bowl filled with thick stew. Sit. Damien hesitated, staring at the bowl like it was a weapon. Damien, Lydia said patiently, if you don't eat, you'll faint. Humans need food. He reluctantly sat. What do I do? Lydia smiled. Use the spoon. He copied her movements, awkwardly at first, then more confidently. When he took the first bite, he froze. His eyes widened. It has flavor. Lydia raised an eyebrow. Yes, that's how food works. Damien blinked rapidly, tasting the stew again. It's warm, soft, Sweet at first, then sharp. The taste changes as I eat it. That's called seasoning, Lydia said, amused. Damien kept eating, slow but fascinated. This is incredible. Lydia sat beside him. Humans live for moments like this. He ate another spoonful, closing his eyes briefly. Moments, not centuries. That's the difference, Lydia said softly. You feel things more because you don't have forever. Damien stopped eating at that. His expression turned thoughtful, almost sad. Yes, he whispered. I feel everything. He set the bowl aside and stood. What do you want to do first? Lydia asked. Damien didn't answer. Instead, he walked outside. Snow crunched under his boots. Crisp cold wrapped around him, real and biting. The village was waking slowly, smoke rising from chimneys, villagers greeting one another across fences. A child ran through the snow laughing, a scarf trailing behind him. Damien stepped into the open street, let the wind hit his face, then closed his eyes. I feel everything. Lydia stood behind him quietly. She watched his breath fog in the air, watched the wonder in his eyes as he looked around. A dog ran by, chasing a stick. Damien jumped backward in surprise. Lydia laughed. It won't bite you, she said gently. Damien scowled. I know that. But a moment later, the dog ran up to him, sniffing eagerly. Damien stiffened like a statue. He likes you, Lydia said, amused. Damien stared at the dog, unsure what to do. Why? Because you smell like snow and would smoke, she said. And because dogs like kind people. Damien frowned. I am not kind. Then maybe he sees something you don't, Lydia whispered. Damien slowly extended a hand. The dog licked his fingers. Damien gasped and withdrew sharply. It's warm, he said. Lydia's smile softened. That's life. He looked down at his hand, touched where the dog's tongue had been. Strange, he murmured. Soft. Unexpected. That's what you came for, isn't it? Lydia asked. Damien didn't answer. Instead, he walked toward the center of the village, where villagers were decorating a large evergreen tree. Strings of berries, carved wooden stars, and candles hung from its branches. Damien stared at it, eyes wide. Why do they do this? For beauty, Lydia said from behind him. For joy. For hope. Damien touched one of the wooden stars. This hope. Humans cling to it. Always. He looked at the villagers. Children building snowmen. Couples laughing. Old friends sharing cider in steaming cups. Damien whispered, I feel like I'm inside a dream. You are, Lydia said quietly. A dream humans live every winter. He turned to her, expression softening in a way she had never seen before. Thank you. Lydia froze. Damien Blackwell had never thanked anyone. Not in 1,000 years. His voice held no command, no threat, no coldness. Just sincerity. Damien, Lydia whispered, shocked. But before she could say more, a deep pain shot through his chest. Damien gasped and grabbed his heart. Lydia rushed forward. Damien! What's wrong? Damien panted. It's nothing, just the heart. It beats differently when I feel too much. That's not nothing, Lydia said. Come inside. Sit. Damien shook his head. No. I will not waste this day indoors. He straightened slowly, breathing through the pain. I want to experience everything. Lydia met his eyes. Then I'll stay with you. Damien looked at her, something warm in his gaze. Good. And together, they stepped deeper into the village, into a world Damien had only watched from afar for centuries. A world that was now his, but only for a single day. By late afternoon, Damien and Lydia returned to the cottage. The village had welcomed him without question. They assumed he was a traveler, a quiet man fascinated by their traditions. Damien had helped hang ornaments, tasted fresh bread, held a candle during a song he didn't know, and even let the village children teach him how to make snowballs. He had laughed. A human laugh, surprised, warm, unfamiliar. But now, back inside, his body felt heavy. His steps slowed. His skin had grown pale again. Lydia noticed instantly. "Damien, you need to sit." He collapsed into the chair before she could finish speaking. She kneeled beside him. "Tell me what hurts." Damien pressed a trembling hand to his chest. "Everything. My heart. It feels like it's working too hard." "That's normal after excitement," Lydia said softly. "Your body isn't used to emotion." Damien looked up at her. "Lydia." "Yes." His voice dropped to a whisper. "Is there something you haven't told me?" Lydia froze. Damien's eyes were too sharp, even in a human body. He saw fear in her face instantly. "Tell me," he demanded quietly. She looked down at her hands, then whispered, "There's a cost. I didn't want to tell you until later. Tell me now." Lydia swallowed hard. "You will die at sunrise." Silence. Damien stared at her, not moving, not blinking. "You will what?" he whispered. "It's the price of the spell," she said, voice shaking. "You have one human day. Only one. At dawn, your human heart stops." Damien rose from the chair slowly, as if forcing strength into his limbs. His eyes darkened, not with anger but something deeper, betrayal. "You did not tell me," he said, voice like breaking ice. "I didn't lie," Lydia whispered. "I just—" "You withheld the truth." Lydia looked at the floor. "I thought, if you knew, you'd choose not to try." Damien stepped closer until he stood directly in front of her. "You chose my fate for me." His words hit her like a blade. "Damien, listen." "No," he cut sharply. "You will listen. I trusted you." His voice softened suddenly, painfully. "For the first time in a century, I trusted someone." Lydia's eyes filled with tears. She tried to blink away. "I wanted to give you something good. Something pure." Damien shook his head slowly. "You gave me a death sentence." "No," Lydia said quickly. "There's more." Damien stopped breathing. "What more?" he whispered. Lydia took a deep breath. "There is a way to save you." Damien stared at her, eyes narrowing. "How?" She hesitated, and that hesitation told him everything. "Do not lie to me again," he warned. Lydia forced the words out. "If I choose to become immortal with you, the spell will break. You will live." Damien went still, completely still. "And if you do not choose it?" he asked quietly. Lydia met his eyes, tears sliding down her cheeks. "You die." Damien stepped back slowly, as if the air between them had become too heavy. "You," he whispered, voice shaking with disbelief, "must join me in eternity, or watch me die at dawn." "Yes," Lydia whispered. Damien laughed softly, not cruelly, but with the hollow sound of someone realizing their fate had been sealed long before they understood it. "So that is the true spell," he murmured. "A choice disguised as a gift." Lydia covered her mouth, trying to stop herself from crying harder. "I didn't mean to hurt you." Damien stared at her, expression unreadable. "And yet you have." He walked toward the door, hand trembling as he reached for the handle. "Damien, please, wait." He stopped but didn't turn around. "When the sun rises," he said quietly, "I will face it as a human. Alone." "Damien!" He opened the door. Snow blew into the room. Cold wind cut between them. Without another word, Damien stepped out into the night, the man who had wanted Christmas more than life itself. And Lydia collapsed to her knees, knowing dawn would take him, unless she gave up her own. Night deepened, and the storm rolled in with it. Snow fell harder now, the flakes turning sharp as glass in the cold wind. The village lights dimmed behind Damien as he walked into the forest, each step slower than the last. His body ached with the heavy pull of mortality, a weight he was not used to carrying. His heart beat too fast, then too slow, each rhythm reminding him that sunrise would kill him. But none of that hurt as sharply as Lydia's truth. He reached the edge of a frozen stream and leaned against a tree, trying to steady his breath. Human breath. It rattled in his chest the way weak flames flicker in dying lanterns. He closed his eyes. She should have told me. The pain wasn't anger. It was betrayal. A wound deeper than any blade had ever pierced him with. His ears picked up the faint sound of footsteps crunching through snow. 2 sets. Moving quickly. Strong. Purposeful. His guards. Only they walked with that kind of deadly confidence. Damien didn't lift his head when Victor Hale and Seraphine Cross stepped into the clearing. They stood on either side of him like twin shadows, both dressed in the dark armor of the Blackwell Guard. Victor's voice broke the silence first. "My king." Damien didn't respond. Seraphine stepped forward, kneeling so she could see his face. Her dark hair blew across her pale cheeks. "Damien," she whispered, worry dripping through the name, "you're breathing." He finally lifted his eyes. Victor inhaled sharply when he saw the fog of Damien's breath rising in the air. "You are mortal." Damien looked away. "For now." Seraphine's expression hardened. "Who did this to you?" "The witch." Damien didn't answer. Victor growled low in his throat, snow vibrating beneath his boots. "We should kill her." Damien's gaze snapped to him. "No." Victor's eyes widened. "Sire." "I said no," Damien repeated, every word a struggle. "Do not touch her." Seraphine exchanged a look with Victor, confusion and fear tightening her features. "Damien, your life is slipping. We can feel it. The bond we share, it's fading." Victor's voice sharpened. "Tell us how to reverse the spell." Damien leaned back against the tree, closing his eyes. "You can't." Seraphine stepped closer. "Then let us carry you back to the castle. We'll find a sorcerer. Someone stronger. Someone who can undo this." Damien shook his head. "No magic can undo what's already done." Victor took a step forward, snow swirling around him. "Then we drag the witch out of hiding, force her." Damien's voice cut like a blade. "If you touch her, you betray me." Victor and Seraphine froze. Damien pushed himself off the tree, wobbling slightly as his human legs struggled to bear his weight. "Lydia did what I asked. What I desired." Seraphine's brows furrowed. "Desired? Damien, you wished for this." "For one day," Damien whispered. "A single day." Victor looked furious. "A day that will kill you." Damien pressed a hand to his chest, feeling the thudding inside. "I wanted to know what it was like. Just once." Victor shook his head angrily. "You wanted to feel like them? The weak. The dying." Damien didn't argue. Seraphine approached him gently. "Let us help you back to the castle." "No." "Why?" she whispered. Damien looked up at the sky. Snowflakes melted on his warm skin before sliding down his face like cold tears. "Because I chose this," he said quietly. "And I will not run from it." Victor took a step forward, eyes burning. "Then we will stay with you until sunrise." Damien shook his head again. "No. You two must remain in the village. Protect it. If I die at dawn, there will be no king. No shield. The council will make their move." Victor grit his teeth. "Let them. We serve you, not the throne." Damien looked at them, truly looked, and something softened in his face. "A king is nothing without those who obey him," he said gently. "Go." Seraphine's eyes glistened. "Damien." He forced a breath. A human breath. Hard and heavy. "This is my choice," he whispered. Victor punched a tree so hard the bark split. "I refuse to accept this." Damien placed a trembling hand on Victor's shoulder. "You must." Victor stared at his king's human hand. Warm, fragile, breakable. Then he bowed, voice shaking. As you command. Seraphine bowed too, tears freezing on her cheeks. We will watch from the shadows. If you call, we come. Damien nodded. Victor stepped back into the trees, Seraphine following. They faded into the darkness, their figures dissolving into snow like ghosts. Damien stood alone again, and the silence swallowed him. He stayed there for a long time, long enough for the cold to pierce through his clothes, long enough for his breath to grow unsteady, long enough for his chest to ache with every heartbeat. Then he whispered the name he'd been avoiding. Lydia. The sound of it stung in his throat. He didn't want to see her. He needed to. So he turned toward the path back to the cottage, each step heavy, each breath a battle. And somewhere behind him, Victor and Seraphine watched like wolves guarding a dying sun. Lydia paced the cottage, her hands shaking so violently she kept dropping the cup she tried to hold. The fire crackled. The candles flickered. Yet the room felt colder than the forest outside. Each minute felt like a year. He won't forgive me. Her heart twisted painfully. He won't choose to live. She sank into a chair, burying her face in her hands. Damien. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. A soft knock broke the silence. Her head snapped up. Another knock. Slow, weak. She ran to the door and pulled it open. Damien stood there, covered in snow, his lips slightly blue, his hands trembling. Damien! She cried, grabbing his arm. He nearly collapsed into her, and she wrapped her arms around him to steady him. For the first time, she felt the full weight of him, the heaviness of human weakness. You're freezing, she whispered urgently. He didn't answer. He just allowed her to pull him inside, something he had never done before. She helped him sit by the fire, kneeling in front of him. Snow melted on his cheeks and dripped onto her hands. Why are you shaking? She asked, voice full of fear. Damien breathed unsteadily. The cold hurts. That's normal, Lydia said softly. You're human. Come closer to the fire. He didn't move. Instead, he looked at her, really looked at her, his eyes tired, his expression carved with pain and heartbreak. You should have told me, he whispered. Lydia swallowed hard. I know. Why didn't you? She bit her lip. Because if I told you the truth, you would have walked away from the spell. You would have kept watching Christmas from a distance for the next 1,000 years. Damien lowered his gaze. You made the choice for me. I know, she whispered again. And I regret it. His breath trembled. You should. She flinched, but didn't look away. I deserve your anger, she said. But you deserve this day. You deserved to feel warmth, to taste food, to laugh, to live. Damien closed his eyes. And now I deserve to die? Lydia's voice broke. No. She reached out and grabbed his cold hands. You don't deserve death. You deserve more. You deserve forever. She took a trembling breath. And I hate myself for making that forever impossible. Damien didn't pull away. But he didn't move closer. He simply sat there, letting their hands touch, letting her warmth soak into his fading strength. You saw my longing, he whispered. You saw the part of me I never show. And you used it. Yes, Lydia said, tears forming. Because I wanted to give you something beautiful. Even if it hurt. Damien's throat tightened. You didn't just hurt me. You condemned me. I know, Lydia whispered. And it's killing me too. Damien opened his eyes, and something inside him cracked. Not anger. Not betrayal. Sadness. Deep, aching sadness. You cried for me, he said quietly. Lydia nodded. I still am. He looked down at their hands again, his trembling in her steady grasp. I don't understand you, he whispered. I don't understand why you care. She looked into his eyes. Because you're not the monster they say you are. Damien swallowed. You should hate me. I don't, Lydia said. I could never. Damien leaned forward, forehead touching hers. His breath shook as it brushed her lips. I don't want to die, he whispered. A tear slid down her cheek. Then don't. Damien closed his eyes tight. I can't choose immortality for you. You don't have to, she whispered. I choose for myself. Damien's eyes shot open. Lydia. She placed a finger gently against his lips. Not now, she said softly. Tonight is about your last night as a human. About your first. About your only. He stared at her, breath shaking. I am afraid, he whispered. So am I. He looked at her for a long moment, really looked, and then something inside him finally gave way. Damien leaned into her, resting his head against her shoulder. Lydia wrapped her arms slowly around him, pulling him close. His body trembled with cold and emotion. For the first time in centuries, the Vampire King allowed himself to be held, allowed himself to be vulnerable, allowed himself to be human. Lydia pressed her cheek against his hair, closing her eyes. I'm here, she whispered. I won't leave. Damien's hand rose weakly, fingers curling into the fabric of her cloak as if anchoring himself to her. I don't want this night to end, he murmured. Lydia's heart cracked clean in half. Then let's make every moment matter. Outside, snow fell gently. Inside, a king learned the meaning of a heartbeat, and the witch who had doomed him held him as though she could keep the dawn from coming. The night had never felt so short. Snow drifted softly against the cottage windows, glowing faintly under the pale moonlight. Inside, the fire crackled low, its warmth barely reaching Damien's trembling body. Lydia watched him carefully as he rested against the pillows she'd piled behind him. His breathing was shallow. His skin had gone from warm to icy again. The spell was weakening. Every second pulled him closer to dawn. And dawn was death. Lydia slid a blanket higher around him, but he caught her wrist gently. You don't have to pretend, Damien murmured, his voice thin. This body isn't meant to last. Lydia swallowed the lump in her throat. You're still alive. That's what matters. He gave a small, humorless smile. For now. Lydia turned away, unable to look at him when he spoke like that. She stirred the fire with shaking hands, pushing more wood into the flames. Behind her, Damien watched her silently. Lydia, he said at last, come sit with me. She hesitated, then crossed the room. When she sat beside him, Damien reached for her hand. Even weak, even dying, his touch made her breathe unevenly. Tell me, Damien whispered, how long do I have? Lydia looked down, tears threatening. Hours. Maybe less. He nodded slowly. And the choice. Her chest tightened. She hated the word. Hated what it meant. It must be made before the sun breaks the horizon, she whispered. Once the first ray touches your skin, it's over. And how long until sunrise? Lydia closed her eyes. 3 hours. Damien breathed out, shaky and soft. 3 hours until my end. Lydia suddenly stood. Stop. Don't say it like that. He watched her carefully. It's the truth. It doesn't have to be. She paced the room, her cloak swaying behind her with every step. You're acting as if there's no other option. There is another option, Damien reminded her quietly. But it isn't yours to bear. It is, Lydia said, turning to him. It always was. Damien leaned his head back against the wall, breath trembling. You don't understand immortality. The hunger. The eternity of existing in shadow. I understand enough. He shook his head. Lydia, I have lived longer than your bloodline has existed. And still, eternity feels endless. Heavy. Cold. I will not let you chain your soul to that. Lydia's voice cracked. You're asking me to watch you die instead? Damien's expression softened, pain flickering in his human eyes. You will live. You will age. You will laugh again. Love again. Your life will go on. Lydia shook her head fiercely. Not without you. He closed his eyes. You think that now. I know it, she whispered. Silence filled the room, heavy as falling snow. Damien opened his eyes again, staring at her with the gentlest expression she had ever seen on him. Lydia, come here. She walked toward him slowly, her hands trembling. Damien lifted his hand, brushing her cheek. His touch was light, fragile. You gave me a day I never thought I'd have, he whispered. A day where I felt human, where I felt alive, where I felt warm. Lydia's breath shook. Damien! But you cannot give me eternity, he finished softly. Tears slipped down her cheeks. Damien wiped one away with his thumb, his touch barely there. I don't want your life to end in darkness just because mine was born in it. She grabbed his hand tightly, pressing it over her heart. You are not darkness. Damien looked at her sadly. You're wrong. No, Lydia leaned forward, her forehead touching his. You're wrong. His breath hitched. Another tremor of pain moved under his skin. Lydia felt it, her heart dropping. Damien, it's getting worse. I know, he whispered, teeth clenched. Mortality doesn't let go easily. She knelt beside him, holding his shaking shoulders. Let me save you. He closed his eyes tightly. Lydia! Let me save you, she repeated, voice breaking. He opened his eyes, meeting her desperate gaze. You're asking me to condemn you. I'm asking you to live. Damien's throat tightened. I don't want to live without this, he whispered, his hand sliding from her cheek to her chest, stopping over her heartbeat. Without feeling this. Without knowing warmth. Lydia placed her hand over his. Then don't. He stared at her. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then the cottage door flew open. Wind and snow blasted inside. Lydia spun around, magic rising in her palms, only to freeze when she saw Victor and Seraphine standing in the doorway, snow dripping from their cloaks, eyes burning with urgency. Lydia, Seraphine said, voice hard. It's time. Victor stepped forward. The sun is rising sooner than expected. The clouds are clearing. Lydia's heart stopped. Damien tried to stand but collapsed with a strangled gasp. Lydia caught him, guiding him back gently. Don't move. Don't push yourself. Seraphine's voice trembled. Lydia, you must decide. Victor's tone was sharper. If you do not choose immortality, we need to prepare for his death. Lydia screamed. Stop talking like he's already gone. Damien reached weakly for her arm. Lydia, don't fight them. She turned back to him. Damien. He gave her a weak smile, one filled with sadness and tenderness. Everything after this moment belongs to you. Her heart tore in two. Victor's voice came again, softer this time. Which, if you love him, decide. Lydia closed her eyes, tears falling freely. Damien's breathing weakened. His heartbeat slowed. The wind howled outside. The first hints of morning began to touch the sky with the faintest silver. And Lydia knew. There was no time left. The forest outside the cottage had turned silent, utterly still, as if the world itself held its breath. Inside, Damien lay against Lydia, his head resting against her shoulder. His skin had turned ghost pale, as if the sunrise were already reaching for him. Victor and Seraphine stood by the door, not speaking, barely breathing. The room dimmed, then brightened with a faint hint of gray. Morning was coming. Lydia's breath shook violently. Damien, stay awake, please. His eyes fluttered open slowly. Still here. Don't close your eyes, she begged. He smiled weakly. I'm tired. She pressed her hands to his cheeks, lifting his face toward hers. Look at me. He did. And Lydia felt her heart break all over again. His eyes, usually cold and ancient, looked soft, fragile, painfully human. "Lydia," Damien whispered, his voice cracking, "I want you to live. I want you to live too." He leaned forward, pressing his forehead to hers. "Then breathe. For both of us." She choked on a sob. "Not without you." Victor stepped forward. "Lydia, the moment is now." Seraphine added softly, "If you do nothing, he dies." Lydia stared at Damien, her hands shaking around his face. He whispered, "Choose life, Lydia. Your life." "You are my life," she breathed. He closed his eyes tightly, pain flickering through his expression. "Then you're choosing death." She shook her head fiercely. "No. I'm choosing you." His eyes opened again, wide, pained, loving. "Please," he whispered. "Don't bind yourself to darkness because of one night." Lydia's voice trembled. "I'm not afraid of darkness," Damien whispered back, "but I am afraid of breaking you." A flicker of dawn brushed across the window, faint but growing. Seraphine's voice rose, urgent, desperate. "Lydia, decide." Victor took a breath. "We cannot shield him from the sun forever." The room felt like it was collapsing around her. Lydia cupped Damien's face. "Do you want me to choose immortality?" Damien's answer came slow, honest, agonizing. "I want you to live, even if I don't." Tears spilled down her cheeks. He brushed one away. "Lydia, let me go." She shook her head. "Never." Dawn brightened the sky further. Victor flinched. "Lydia, now." Lydia's breath broke in half. Damien whispered, "Please." Her heart screamed inside her chest. She leaned forward, pressing her lips to his, a kiss full of trembling fear and love. His hand rose weakly to her back. Her tears fell onto his cheek. He whispered against her lips, "Whatever you choose, do it with your whole heart." She pulled back just enough to look into his eyes. And in that fragile moment, with dawn reaching for him and death breathing down his neck, Lydia made her choice. If you want to know what Lydia chose, if she saved Damien or let him feel his first and final sunrise, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Because the next chapter is coming. And trust me, you don't want to miss what Dawn takes, or what it gives back. Like, comment your theory below, and join me again for the next breath of this story.